9 years ago today, on March 11th, 2011, a Friday, the sea in front of Japan shook. It was the most powerful recorded earthquake in the country's history, with a magnitude of 9.0. It was so strong it moved Honshu, Japan's main island, 2.4 meters east, and even shifted the Earth's axis by 10 to 25 centimeters. The tsunami following the earthquake reached Japan only a couple of minutes later, killing more than 15,000 people and causing the worst nuclear disaster in 25 years at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Today I will talk to Ken, a friend of mine who lived close to the power plant on the day of the disaster. First of all, thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
For how long have you been in Japan now?
Oh, I've been in Japan for almost 15 years.
I understand you lived in Fukushima in 2011. Can you explain why you moved there?
Well, I moved to Fukushima for a career opportunity. I didn't move to Fukushima initially from the time that I came to Japan. I started in Tokyo, but after a few years, a job position in Fukushima opened up, and I took it. And if you want me to be completely honest, I took it because it offered free rent and a very high pay to entice me to go out to the countryside where there's nothing but snow-covered mountains 6 months a year.
And you have been there also on March 11th, the day of the earthquake, right?
I lived in a town called Nihonmatsu City, which is between Fukushima City and Koriyama City, which are the two big ones there. And I had just come home from work, and actually I was on the phone with somebody from Tokyo because the next day was going to be the beginning of our 3-week vacation that we had at that job there. And so I was on the phone with someone from Tokyo, and earthquake started around 2:45. Earthquake started, and I was on the phone and I said, hey, I think I have to hang up. We're having a big earthquake. I think I need to go outside. And the person on the phone said, yeah, we're having an earthquake too. And at the time it didn't register. I hung up the phone, took the TV off the table, ran outside, and neighbors came outside, and I think it was about 30 minutes that it actually shook. I remember checking my watch after it was over. It was after 3 o'clock, so somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes that it had been shaking. And I don't know how to explain the feeling. Like if you're standing on a bed and there's 3 people jumping on the bed around you and you're trying to keep your balance, that's kind of what it felt like. Now, I lived in kind of a medium-sized apartment building for the area, and so there were about 10, 12 people outside. I had to hang on to the side of my house to keep from falling off, and a guy that tried to run out to his house, he grabbed onto the bumper of his car and just hung onto his car, and we're all shaking, and we're all looking at each other like, what's going on? Is this ever going to stop? And we weren't really in any kind of danger during the earthquake, but it was very hard to stand up, and bikes fell over, and one of the houses on the street that was a lot older, the roof fell in. We watched that. Our house was a little bit newer, so we didn't have that happen, but we're just looking around going, what's going on? And then it was over, and of course power was out, phone was out, and we were like, that was big. That was a very big earthquake. And we got everybody that I knew from the job. We all got together, and we went down to the city hall to see what was going on. And power was out, phone was out, information was scant. But by the end of the day, information started to come in. The tsunami was not instant, right? Now, actually, I did not live on the coast. I lived in the mountains. It was about 52 or 55 kilometers away from the coast, and the tsunami was not instant. So at the time the earthquake happened, we thought, okay, earthquake, but this is a really big one. And then maybe an hour later, we started to get news, tsunami's coming in. And a few hours later, we got news about the explosion. And this was all coming in over a radio that the city hall had, which we could barely hear. Of course, it was all in Japanese. It was hard to hear the radio. People were coming in and out talking. People were scared, of course, and we got the information in, and it was very clear that, you could go home and sit in the dark and cold with no power, or you could stay at the city hall, sleep on the floor, and figure this out, right? And so that's what we did.
How did you feel once you heard about the explosion and potential radiation?
Well, actually, I didn't know there was a nuclear facility at the time that was there, right? I didn't know that it was there. You move to Fukushima, and that's not something they talk about, right? Oh, there's a nuclear plant 100 miles away from here, okay? But I didn't know what to think about it. Just, well, okay, well, exploded. What are you going to do? Right? There's very little I can do about it. I thought I was far away enough that, it wasn't going to be a danger, but I didn't realize that when it explodes, then instantly there's radiation in the air, right? It just happens. It's just coming out, and it's everywhere.
At what point did you learn that something was wrong with the power plant?
Well, I would say that kind of the next morning, information came in, and really the only thing that I had heard was that it exploded. Right, the tsunami came and power plant exploded, and that's really it. I mean, it's been like almost 10 years now. I'm trying to think back to it, but I didn't know like the radiation level or the severity of the situation at the time. That came in many days later.
When the news finally arrived, were you still in Nihonmatsu?
Well, getting out of there was really hard because first the train station of that area, the roof caved in and the train was inoperable, but also the train line goes down Fukushima and down along the coast, and that was wiped out completely, so there was no way out. And then people that had a car got out, supermarkets emptied out, gasoline was gone, and ATMs were empty too. I was really surprised about that. So if you didn't have a car, gas, and money, you kind of weren't getting out. Now the job I had did arrange for people to get out, but it took a while to do, and we spent some time in the shelter, which was at the city hall, and things kind of cleared up, and we went back home for a while, and then in the middle of the night, knock on the door from my boss saying, "Hey, we got a van. Are you coming? This is the only way out. You can stay or you can go." So I got on, packed a suitcase, and got out, took what I could and left, and that was it. Out of there. When you get down to Tokyo, you could watch TV and you could kind of see what was going on, but I didn't see anything until I got down there.
In Tokyo, when you could finally understand the magnitude of the disaster, how did you feel?
I couldn't believe it, right? Because all I knew was what I had felt and what was around me, and you hear the information, but I saw like the big green gas tankers explode on TV, and of course you saw the tsunami, and just look at it just like, oh my god, wow.
Since then, did you ever go back to Fukushima?
No, I didn't go back. Everything was tied to the job there, and there was nothing to go back there, and there was nothing to work for anymore because of the disaster. So I had to find a new job and everything. And actually, I left, and the apartment that I had was given to refugees from the areas where the towns were shut down by the power plant and the houses were destroyed by the tsunami. So the option to go back was actually not there because there were no houses, there was no space to rent out anyway. I had given mine up when I left.
How did your life continue after the catastrophe?
Hit the pavement, found a new job, and got back on my feet. Now, I should say, though, that every person from Fukushima and Miyagi and a few other places in the area, they were given money by TEPCO. I got 60,000 yen, which is about $600. Not that much, right? If you had children, you got a lot more money. Basically, that was based on the threat that you might receive later in life by being exposed to radiation. If you're 30 years old and you're an adult and you're a man, not that they don't care about you, but you're probably going to be fine. So they gave me 60,000 yen, and the government gave UR housing, which is public housing, to you for free until you found a new place to live. So I stayed there for a while. It had no furniture, it had nothing. It was just an apartment. They gave me one futon. It was a cold tatami floor, and got in there, went to look for a new job, got a new job. Everything's fine now.
What does the future hold for you?
I'm in a good place. I got a good job. I have a good place to live now. And, life, it was a hard, 6 months to a year, but, life got back on track, and I'm going to continue with my career, my regular job, and YouTube as a hobby will continue until I run out of ideas, and that's going to be it. Maybe a better job comes along, find it, but, just the regular day-to-day.
Finally, is there anything you want to share with the audience?
I don't know. Well, I would say, one, be prepared for anything, and whatever life throws at you, it's not the worst thing in the world. Someone else will always have it harder in a different way. So be grateful for what you have, and don't be jealous for what you don't have. Because some people don't have the things you have, and some of the things you might want, you might get someday.
The decontamination efforts in and around the Fukushima Daiichi power plant are ongoing to this day and will continue for the larger part of this century. Big thanks to Ken for sharing his time and story with me. He runs GTV, a game in Japan focused channel with high quality content. Please check it out by clicking the button on the screen now. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.